Hi, I'm Jon Hurwitz, and welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Jon Hurwitz, welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show. It's a pleasure to have you here. How are you today?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm pretty good, thanks. It's actually the 2-year anniversary of my show, which is really exciting.
Happy I could help you celebrate.
Thank you very much. Now, Jon, you are known for Harold and Kumar and American Reunion and most recently Blockers, which was very funny. But I want to take everyone back to 1984. There was a movie that came out called The Karate Kid, which went on to have 2 sequels, and then it had a spin-off with Hilary Swank. Then in 2010, there was a reboot with Jaden Smith. Can you tell me how you came about working on the TV series or the YouTube series Cobra Kai?
Well, this was the exact opposite of a typical kind of Hollywood sequel type situation. Usually the studio just has a piece of property and they're looking for writers and they're like, how can we make money off of this? And this was the opposite. This was, myself and my partner, Hayden Schlossberg, who I work with. I've worked with on all of my movies up until this point. The two of us and our really good friend, Josh Heald, who I went to college with, we've all been huge fans of Karate Kid since we were children. In the early 2000s, when we were young screenwriters, we would always talk about how amazing it would be to sort of make another movie in the Karate Kid universe with the original cast. But it never felt like it was a realistic thing. It felt like, knowing the studio system, it was going to be impossible to kind of get them to, make that kind of a movie. It had been too long. When the Jaden movie happened, we figured, okay, well, this will never happen. And then, fast forward a few years and you look at the kind of resurgence of sort of 80s properties and 90s properties sort of in the streaming service space, and just sort of the way you're able to kind of tell long form narrative stories. It felt really interesting to us. So a couple years ago, Josh, Hayden, and I sort of sat down and said, okay, well, let's find out if we can actually pursue this. And we said, okay, well, who has the rights to Karate Kid? We found out that it's Will Smith's company, Overbrook Entertainment. We took a meeting over there. They loved what we had to say, and they were on board immediately. We met with Sony; they were on board, and then it was about getting Billy and Ralph. And once we got them, we developed our pitch, went around town, and here we are.
That's amazing. Because I know they had done a few things over the years. Billy Zabka had done a music video, and Ralph Macchio had done a funny or die little comedy short as well, and they both got together for How I Met Your Mother. But what was it like to be with both of them again on set, reviving these iconic characters?
For us, I mean, it was a dream come true. I mean, to be able to work with these two guys who we've been fans of for so long was amazing, just first and foremost. But to be able to actually do it in a way where I'm directing Daniel LaRusso and Johnny Lawrence, that was surreal and crazy. But both of the guys were fully on board, and they were in, and they were beyond easy to work with. They were collaborative, and they went for it, and it was really fun.
One thing I loved about it, anyone that knows me knows that The Karate Kid is my favorite film. I've still got the original VHS here. One thing I loved about the movie, the TV show, is that it's completely faithful to the characters of where you think they might have ended up. Johnny is, he's working hard, but life's kind of tough on him, and he's still kind of haunted, I guess, by losing that fight in 1984. And Daniel LaRusso is doing well, and as Mr. Miyagi worked with cars and bonsai trees, it's nice to see him carry that on with what he does.
Yeah, sure. It's a lot of people are haunted from events of their past, but it doesn't help when your high school nemesis has become the auto king of the valley, with billboards right near your apartment building, and anytime you turn on the radio or watch TV, you're seeing commercials and hearing commercials with your nemesis, reminding you of that pain from high school. But yeah, it was fun to sort of try to take these characters on a logical journey. We didn't want them to suddenly no longer be Daniel and Johnny. They needed to be Daniel and Johnny, but how they might be present day. And we're glad that people have responded and think that what we've done has been authentic, because we put a lot of thought into it.
Yeah, definitely. And so the originals were very much sort of action dramas, but I must say Cobra Kai is one of the funniest shows I've ever watched. Not to say that there is an action and drama and all that good stuff too, but it's very, very funny. How was everyone receptive to sort of changing the tone of it?
Yeah, everyone was really into it. I think that it all came from a place of keeping it grounded and keeping the characters real in the first place. And it's just really just, we went from having a sort of kids movie, in a sense. It was a family movie, I should say, as opposed to a kids movie. But it was a movie that, the lead characters were teenagers, and it was almost like a Disney movie in a weird sense back then. When you're taking these characters again in their present day and they're now in their 50s, inherently the story is going to be a little bit more adult. The fact that we're coming in through the Cobra Kai lens, the sort of the quote unquote villainous lens, lends itself automatically to a little bit more comedy. Just even the fact that these two 50-year-old men still have this like teenage karate rivalry between them. There's something just inherently funny about it. And, it's also, Karate Kid over the years has been, it's been parodied many, many times. It's, there's a certain campiness to some of the characters, and especially on the Cobra Kai side. So to take itself 100% like too seriously in certain ways may not have been effective, but we figured that we could take the material earnestly and seriously while also having a little bit of fun with it.
Absolutely, and I think it really works. Another thing that I love about it is that some of the scenes are kind of like poetry, so they rhyme with scenes that happened in the films but play out in different ways,
Sure.
which is fantastic. Another thing I really liked is there's quite a few, it seems to be unused original scenes that were shot during the first movie.
Yeah, so we were able to get footage that you've never seen before. That was one of the craziest things for us was, first and foremost, it was like, we'd love to be able to use the footage from the movie to be able to help tell this present day story, because we wanted this story to be something that, even if you were not a big fan of Karate Kid, you could be caught up quickly by just sort of seeing the scenes in there. But, when we first, when it was first a go with YouTube, one of the first things we said to Sony was, is there any way that we could sort of find that old footage? And they had to like dig it up from the salt mines, like in the middle of the desert. It felt like this like whole kind of adventure that some people working for Sony had to go on, and they got the footage and they cleaned it all up, and they did all the technical stuff that they needed to do, so we were able to kind of use it. And in particular, most of the new footage that you've never seen before is in that first sort of fight, where we're able to see that in a whole new way, where we have all these angles of Johnny Lawrence's face throughout the fight and his perspective a little bit more, because we wanted to take sort of a moment that's been historically triumphant and make it sort of a more tragic moment for the Johnny Lawrence character.
Absolutely, and I think it also adds, not that it needs it, but it makes you want to revisit the original films, because you then start, Johnny, well, at the end of it, his character arc is that he isn't a villain anymore. You start to see things from his perspective. He was dating Ali, and then Daniel comes over and all that kind of thing. So it's really interesting how that plays out.
Yeah, well, that was really the whole exercise here that we thought would make this interesting. We wanted to take these two characters and sort of bring them back and be able to examine both of their lives, but in the 90 minutes of the Karate Kid, you never really got to see a lot more about Johnny. And that was the thing, that, if you're telling this story about both these characters, you're getting inside the head of Johnny and be like, wait a second, what was going on in his life? What was his perspective of the whole situation? And, there's all these, theories about that Daniel was the real bully of the Karate Kid and all that. And the truth of the matter is, our belief happens to be that Daniel was more the victim than Johnny was the victim of that particular conflict. But that doesn't mean that, Johnny didn't have his own issues going on, and that there's a reason for why he behaved the way that he did, and that perhaps Daniel wasn't completely innocent in the entire situation as well. And I think it was fun to sort of be able to explore these characters that you thought you knew completely, and now see them in a whole new light.
Yeah, that's right. Because there's certainly scenes such as the Halloween party where it's definitely Daniel provoking them. You know, he puts the water and all that kind of thing. So it's interesting seeing things from both perspectives. Now,
Sure.
another thing I love is that some very famous locations reappear. So obviously, I've been to Daniel LaRusso's house where they shot it originally because I lived in LA for a while. But some of the others, were they recreations, or how many of these places still exist? Golf and stuff, for example.
So some were recreations and some were the original. You know, Daniel's place. Funny story is right before we went to shoot. You know, we shot most of the show in Atlanta. So we were in Atlanta, Georgia, instead of shooting in the Valley, which was something that was disappointing to us. You know, at first. But you know, having shot movies in Atlanta before, we knew that we could, you know, fake a lot of it. We did still shoot we did shoot a few days in the Valley, but in any case, when we were going, you know, we did our own little kind of Karate Kid tour and said, okay, well, let's go to these famous locations. And we were under the impression that Daniel's old apartment building had been torn down. So we were like, okay, well, where the apartment building used to be. And we pull up and we're like, there it is. It's still here. So that was something that we actually didn't initially plan to do. And then when we realized, oh, well, it exists, we wrote it into the show. But, you know, in terms of golf and stuff, we recreated that. We ended up using actually footage from the original movie for that sign, and used that with our effects team to kind of put that in there and transition us to our new golf and stuff location, which was in Atlanta. It was, you know, a theme park over there. And we ended up making sure that they ordered in certain games. There's the hockey game and things like that that they had in the original movie. We wanted to sort of have some of the same kinds of games. The real golf and stuff does exist out here in Los Angeles still. It still is around, but you know, we weren't able to shoot there. We ended up shooting that in Atlanta. But you know, the craziest thing for us was Mr. Miyagi's backyard, because that was a scene. That was a location that had been built for the original movie, and then it was torn down in between, and then they ended up having to rebuild it for the third movie, and then that was torn down. And so we had to, in Atlanta, sort of in our parking lot of our stages, we ended up building Miyagi's backyard again. And that was one of those things that we shot towards the very end of production. And we didn't even know if we were going to be able to have the funds to create that. At first, we thought we might have to kind of fake it in a smaller way, but luckily we were able to pull it off.
Yeah, it all looked fantastic. Now, so the show was announced last year. How long did Billy and Ralph have to train? Did they have to take up karate again or anything like that to get back in shape?
You know, they both immediately were working with trainers just to get themselves in fighting shape. You know, Billy, I feel like, has had, you know, the karate still a little bit a part of his life over the years. I think that it's something that he's kept that skill set. I mean, not to the degree that you see on the show, but, you know, he's kept himself sort of in karate shape. Ralph has not been a big karate guy over the last bunch of years. He's always in good shape, but this was a whole new thing. And unlike when they shot the movie where they had months in advance where they got to train, we were writing scenes, and then, you know, they'd only have, you know, a few weeks or even 1 week to sort of plan an entire fight sequence with our fight choreographer, Hiro Koda. And it was a much more aggressive sort of schedule, but they were up to the task.
They all look fantastic, by the way, and all the fight scenes that they're in so far. Now, Pat Morita, sadly, of course, passed away. He played Mr. Miyagi, but I love how his spirit is sort of still felt across the entire series.
Yeah, well, Mr. Miyagi is such a huge part of the Karate Kid universe. And, you know, at the end of the day, he was really Daniel's father figure. He was, you know, the person who helped Daniel grow up the right way, and was a great role model for him. You know, we thought when we first started talking to Ralph about the show, what we said to him was, we love the idea of exploring, you know, a Daniel LaRusso that no longer has Mr. Miyagi in his life. That this is somebody, yes, he's become a success, but adulthood brings on new challenges, and to not have that sort of, you know, father figure in your life to be able to turn to for advice during those tough times, it's possible that maybe Daniel would be a little bit off balance. And that was sort of where we start with Daniel in the series. And it was important to all of us to make sure that we're honoring Pat Morita's legacy, Mr. Miyagi's legacy in the series. And it was fun being able to use some flashback clips of him and also just sort of keep his presence alive.
Absolutely. And do you have a favorite scene, either that you wrote or filmed or just watched play out on screen?
I have so many favorite scenes. Some of the greatest memories for me, one was just the whole tournament sequence, which was just absolute mayhem. There was just so much to do in so little time. And it was such a group effort from everyone, from our crew, from the production design to the stunt choreography to the camera team. It was fun getting all that done, and it was also the most probably stressful time. I also really loved shooting Kata in the Wilderness with Daniel because that was actually my 40th birthday. We were shooting there. So it was one of those sort of surreal sort of, pinch yourself moments where, I grew up loving the Karate Kid, and to be able to have that kind of an experience on my 40th birthday was something I'll never forget.
Absolutely. Another thing that I love is just how layered all the characters are. They're certainly not one-dimensional at all, and there's so many different dynamics going on. So, for example, Daniel's daughter's friends crash into Johnny's car, and Johnny's son, spoiler alert, by the way, if you haven't noticed so far, Johnny's son ends up being trained by Daniel, and there's lots of things, lots of storylines, obviously, that haven't played out yet. But it's really rich, which I really enjoyed.
Oh, thank you. We viewed it from the beginning. We always talked about this as a karate opera set in the San Fernando Valley. It's kind of a soap opera of sorts. And so there's there are going to be those moments of, people seeing what's going on with other characters and misunderstandings and all that kind of stuff. But, all the characters on the show, it was important to us to show, all sides of them, and to show that, people aren't simply good or bad necessarily, that there are shades of gray. And it was, it's all about sort of perspective and putting people into situations that bring out the different sides of them.
So there were lots of surprises in the show, but I think my favorite was when Daniel LaRusso's mum turned up, played by Randy Heller. What was that like to get them back together again?
That was amazing. Randy was really fun to be around. As a young guy from Jersey who, made the Daniel LaRusso pilgrimage out to LA, the Randy Heller, the Daniel's mom, was a character that reminded me of my family, reminded me of people from back home. So it was fun to have, her on set. She and Ralph have such a great rapport, and it's fun to sort of expand upon that LaRusso family.
Now, the show's not been out for very long, but already it's enjoyed over 33 million views. It's certified 100% fresh and rotten tomatoes or tomatoes in America. Were you expecting this kind of reaction and reception?
We knew that we made something that we enjoyed, and the other people who were making it really enjoyed. We knew that there were Karate Kid fans all over the world, and it was our goal to make something that that not only fans would enjoy, and that new viewers can fall in love with the way that we fell in love with the Karate Kid back in the day. So the intent was for people to enjoy it, but you never know what's going to happen. You never know what the reaction to anything is going to be, and we're just stunned and grateful that people are responding to the show the way that we intended. I think we had confidence that that audiences were going to enjoy the story that we were telling. I think the critical acclaim is something that we hoped for, but we're certainly not expecting at the levels that it's at right now. Simply because you just never know when it comes to kind of what they're looking for. It's something that we're all thrilled about, and it only will lead to more people watching the show, which is the most important thing to us.
Absolutely. I mean, if anyone hasn't seen it before, it's one of the few shows I've ever binge watched all 10 episodes without stopping, without taking a break, getting a drink or anything like that. And I immediately just wanted to watch it again. It was so, so good.
Well, when we were writing each episode, we always tried to end the episode in a way that would make you kind of want to continue on in the story. And, Hayden, Josh, and I, we all come from the world of feature films. We've never done television before. We've always liked to tell a long story, and we happen to be guys who've made franchises like sequels to things. And even with American Pie: The Reunion, we were not part of that initially, but like Karate Kid, we came in there as fans and kind of continued that story. So we've always enjoyed, long form storytelling, and we viewed this as a 5-hour movie in a sense that's just broken up into 10 parts. And we're glad a lot of people have been enjoying it in that way.
Definitely. Now, I must talk about the cliffhanger at the end of season 1 as well. Of course, Martin Cove, or Sensei Kreese, makes his triumphant return. Was it difficult keeping that a secret? What was the reaction being like?
It was definitely difficult keeping that a secret because we like to be honest in interviews, and when people were asking us about Kreese, we were like, okay, how firm should we be about like whether he's in it or not? Because we were like, well, if we say, well, you'll see, then people will know, oh, well, he's obviously in it. So like that was very tough for us, but especially for Martin, because Mr. Cove is a very passionate man who loves the Karate Kid and loves the fan base. He meets fans every single day who appreciate these movies. So it was much harder for him than it was for us, that every single day he'd be meeting somebody and they'd be hearing about the show and they're like, are you in it? And he had to basically tell people that he was not in the show, and that was painful for him. It was very painful for him. But now he's thrilled. Now we're all very excited that people have responded so favorably to him returning, and he's out there and able to talk to the world about it. He's thrilled.
It's very exciting. Now, how long after season 1 was released did you get the green light for season 2?
It was a week later, which was amazing. While we were making the show and we were in post-production, we knew that the people at YouTube really loved it and that they wanted to with the tech companies. It's sort of a different model where they usually will analyze months worth of data before they're able to pick up a series. And at YouTube, it had never been faster than 2.5 months before they pick something up. So we were kind of told, okay, like it may be faster than that, but be prepared to wait a little while. And then out of the blue, a week later after the release, they're like, okay, we're ready for more. And Hayden, Josh, and I had already been thinking quite a bit about it. We kind of had a sense that it would probably happen, so we've been hard at work planning season 2.
That's amazing. And had any of the cast already signed on when they signed on to season 1? If there was a season 2?
Yes, the entire cast has already been signed on. Before they shot the show, they were signed on to do multiple seasons.
Oh, that's incredible. And can you tell me how far through? I appreciate it's probably being written at the moment. How are you getting on with that process?
Right now, we're in the early stages where it's just Hayden, Josh, and I in a room getting all of our ideas down, all the different character journeys, just fun moments, fun scenes. And we're just sort of piecing it all together right now, figuring out what's going to fit in those 10 episodes and what stuff can be pushed to later on or maybe never show up. So we're in the midst of that stage right now, and a few weeks from now we'll bring on some other writers to help us kind of flesh out some specifics in there. But the story's coming together nicely. We're really excited about season 2.
Fantastic. If you need a deceptively good karate expert from the UK, then feel free to let me know.
All right, we know where to call.
Exactly. And are you when's it going to start filming? Will it be later this year, early 2019?
It should be shooting later this year, a similar schedule to what we had last year. We shot last year, it was October, November, December. So I'm expecting a similar type of schedule this year.
Okay. Now there's been lots of rumors and speculation about who might turn up in series season 2. People have speculated about Elizabeth Shue, but one person I think would be a really interesting bad guy is the person that she left Daniel for in the beginning of Karate Kid 2, that football player. Could be like a mutual rival.
That's a funny character to think about. You never know who's going to show up in the Cobra Kai universe. You know, we view the first 4 movies, including the one with Hilary Swank, as all part of the Karate Kid canon. So any characters from those movies or people who are, you know, in the world of those characters could eventually show up. In terms of specifics for season 2, as of now, we've signed on no additional characters beyond the original characters that we've seen in season 1. We have ideas for other characters that may return, but it remains to be seen who will be back.
It's very exciting. There's lots of very strong rumors about Mike Barnes at the moment, so I think that'd be very interesting. I loved how Johnny didn't know who he was.
Yes. Well, Mike Barnes may return at some point in time. We don't have any specific plans either way. I know that there are rumors out there, but that's not correct. You know, it's we love all the characters from the universe, and they may return at some point in time. But you know, as of now, we're still in the writing phase.
It's very exciting. And do you think it will stay in Los Angeles or Reseda, or do you think Daniel might one day venture back out to Okinawa or somewhere else?
Anything's possible. Anything's possible. We have all sorts of ideas. You know, when we first conceived of the show, we didn't view this as a 1 or 2 season thing. We view this as a long story, and we have a sense of kind of where we'd like it to go. As of right now, we're not we're you know, not entirely sure where we're going to be in season 2, season 3, season 4, and assuming we get those places. But the idea of going outside of the valley is definitely appealing to us.
It's very exciting. So we might one day see them bump into Jackie Chan and Jaden Smith going on separate adventures.
And perhaps we'll see. We'll see one day.
And if you had to pick an allegiance, I know this is a very difficult question, would you say you're more Cobra Kai or Miyagi-Do karate?
I would say that I am. I'm definitely more Miyagi-Do in life, but comedically, I connect more to the Cobra Kais.
Wow. Because see, I think I'm more sort of Miyagi-Do. You see, it's probably where my allegiance is. Absolutely.
I respect that. I think my allegiance is really with Miyagi, but you know, there's just something about you know, the Cobra Kai philosophy that makes us laugh. Absolutely.
But the good thing about it is my house has been fly free since 1984, and I'm really good with chopsticks.
That's great.
So thank you very much for your time. I'm very much looking forward to season 2, 3, 4, and hopefully 100 of Cobra Kai. Everyone watching at home, be sure to share, subscribe, give the video a big thumbs up, and I'll see you all again soon for another episode of the Sarah O'Connell Show. Bye.
This is my pleasure.